All right. I think we're live. Hopefully, we're live. It's hard to tell. And welcome everyone to this episode of Women of Agile. I want to say thank you to our sponsors, and I'm going to talk on behalf of Agile Testing Days today since Jose decided to stay in the background. Agile Testing Days is a conference that I've been going to for 11 years now, 10 years, something like that. One of my favorite conferences, and works really well with the community and tries to get out and share, which is part of today. Ellen.
Excellent. And I am delighted to be here on behalf of Agile Alliance co-presenting this series with Agile Testing Days. I have to say, I have not yet had the chance to attend Agile Testing Days in person. I know, but it's been on my bucket list for years. It just hasn't worked out.
Maybe this year.
maybe this year. But I'm really glad that we're able to co-present this series together. We had so much fun doing the first episode where we talked about 20 years of women in Agile. And so when it was decided, hey, let's do a second series digging into the future of women in Agile, I was like, let's go, because this is going to be a really great conversation. So today's topic, this is what we want to think about. We want to talk about the future of women in Agile. Where do we see things going in Agile? Where do we see things going as women in Agile? And particularly focusing on the experiences of women as leaders in the Agile world, and in a number of different cultural contexts, because there's going to be a lot of rich material there to explore, especially given the amazing panel of women that we have joining us today. I'm so excited. We're going to be talking to Faiza, Yousuf, Alexandra Schladebeck, Claudia, Badell, and Johanna Rothman. And rather than me talking about how fabulous they are, what I would like to do is invite them to join us one at a time and give them each just about a minute to introduce themselves and tell us about who they are. So let's start with Johanna. If we could bring Johanna on stage to join us. She's got a minute to introduce herself to our audience today. Hopefully she will be joining us momentarily. I love how people beam in and beam out of online things. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm really delighted to be here. This is great.
Excellent. Do you want to say a couple of words about who you are, just in case, like anybody in the audience is like, I know who she is.
No, people don't know me. So I'm Johanna Rothman. I have been in the Agile community for a long time. I've been doing Agile-ish things my entire career because I had learned that trying to plan the whole thing up front did not work. And I needed feedback and I needed to iterate. I thought at first I was just too stupid. No, this is life. So why not apply what we do in our lives to our work? And that's what I do. I write a lot. My most recent books are the Modern Management Made Easy series. And yeah, I can talk about almost anything for any amount of time. So you should probably cut me off now.
Well, and that's perfect, because we're going to talk about all of those things in the remainder of the hour. But right now, I'd like to invite Faiza on stage to join us to introduce herself. And we'll wait for her to beam in.
It's magic.
It's magic. Sometimes it's not like magic in the movies where you just snap your fingers and voila, it happens.
Or twist our noses.
Yeah. Maybe that's a skill I can
it's like Bewitched.
Yeah,
it's Bewitched.
Yeah.
And there we are. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Excellent. Can you just take a minute to introduce yourself to our audience?
Sure. My name is Faiza Yousuf. I'm based in Karachi, Pakistan. And I've been working in the tech industry for around 11 years now. I started with software testing and then moved towards product management. And I run a very big community here in Pakistan called Women in Tech PK, and a coding bootcamp for girls called Code Girls.
Wonderful. Thank you. Welcome. And I was just about to type, but now I will announce it because we're there. I was going to ask if we could invite Alex up on stage to introduce herself. So we'll give her a moment to beam in, and then we'll almost be assembled. There should be a whooshing noise as people come in, you know?
Yeah, we could have some sound.
So I can see Alex has been invited. She will be here momentarily. Need to, walk up music like they have in in-person conferences.
Yeah.
Welcome, Alex.
Hey, thanks for having me. That was a bit scary. I clicked on accept and then you all went away and I thought I'd been kicked out. That would be entirely in line with my experience with technology. My name is Alex Schladebeck. I am based in Germany. I grew up in the UK, left for Germany when I was about 22, and I've been here for about 16 years now. I've gone through various roles. I've been a tester, I've been a product owner, I've been a consultant. The thing that links through all of my roles is me doing a lot of talking. I speak a lot at conferences, I talk a lot, and always looking at how we can get quality and agility into basically everything we're doing. I love what you said, Johanna. Things just don't go according to plan. My original plan was to stay in Germany for 2 months, and I've been here for quite a long time. So, yeah. I've also, in the last few years, gone into leadership. I was first a team lead, and now I'm one of the CEOs of Bradex. So trying to bring agility to that kind of level, and also, despite new roles and new stresses, stay true to the things that I believe and make sure they happen at that level as well. That's me.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Alex. And now if things go according to plan, Claudia will join us on stage and she'll have a minute to introduce herself before we jump into exploring some of those topics. So. And again, there we go. Hi, Claudia.
Hi, all. Well, I'm very excited for to be in this panel today. I'm Claudia Badell from Uruguay, South America. I have a computer engineer degree. I started my professional career as a business analyst, and a year later I started working as a tester. I love it. And since then, I have always been part of a software development team, having different roles, but always defining the testing strategy and evangelizing a testing mindset in the team. I also organize testing week conference, and I'm very active in the testing community in South America. Thanks for having me today.
Oh, thank you all for joining us. We're all really excited to hear what you say. Sorry. To talk about technical issues. My technical issues are entirely between my brain and my tongue at the moment. But we're delighted that everybody is joining us today so we can dig into some of these topics that came up in the introductions about leadership, about some of the different cultural aspects of our work, about, digging into software testing too, even. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Janet, actually.
Yeah, and I'm quite excited to know that I can blame that issue between my brain and my tongue as a technical issue, because it happens a lot. I just thought it was age. Technical. I love it. All right. The first thing we're going to talk about is leadership. And so I'll be asking each one of you to kind of talk about how you got to be a leader in your area, because you have such diverse backgrounds. And I know, Johanna, you're a leader in several different areas as well. I know that. But maybe a little bit about what kind of challenges you had along the way, or maybe who helped you along the way. But we can explore those as we go forward. But I'm going to start with Alex, because you've got this. You were just in your introduction, you talked about newly becoming a CEO. So you've had quite a few challenges lately, I believe. And so how did you get to be there? That's quite exciting.
I wish I could tell you what the actual strategy was, because I think it's along the lines of I'm always interested and I always want to learn, and I keep asking questions and then I keep talking, and I think I'm lucky that I'm good at then learning and bringing things back, and it turns out I was good at developing strategies and working with people as well. And it's intensely hard to talk about myself so positively because the challenges are that I have days when I wake up and I'm like, how did I get here? and looking around at people who've been doing it for a lot longer and comparing, and I suffer from that just as much as anybody else, and I try to make sure that I give myself a bit of a bash on the head if I do it too much. I like to think it's because I have a growth mindset, and because I understand that you can't just do strategy without humans. You can't do humans without some kind of strategy, because they also need to be able to grow and develop. And I like to think that that's the way it happened, but if you ask me what the steps were, I still wouldn't be able to tell you.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily think anybody ever has, well, I guess some people might have steps, but you talked about the growth mindset. And so if I think about that, you're something comes up and you step into it. Did you have help along the way?
Definitely. I mean, most especially from some of the people in this call and in the chat. One of the people who helped me first and foremost was the very first person who gave me my job, because I was a complete lateral career joiner. I came from linguistics, and so getting a job in IT, that was somebody who saw some potential and always let me grow. I remember the very first time that I met Pepe as well, Jose, and he has definitely given me a lot of stepping stones. The whole Agile Testing Days team have really, really helped me there. Seeing me grow from a speaker at their conference to letting me keynote and do workshops and having me all over the place. And the people around me in my teams who've always explained things to me and helped me and explained things to me again if I didn't understand. And not in the least, the most fantastic Women in Testing network, without whom I definitely would not be where I am today. And I am intensely grateful to them.
Okay, might come back to some of those things in a bit. Faiza, how about you? Because you've started this amazing, I don't even know movement. Let's call it a movement in Pakistan. How did you get there? What prompted you to start that? Can I just, before you start, can I ask the other participants to mute while she's talking? Because I'm getting a little bit of feedback.
I just need to find the button. Found it. Okay, Faiza.
Yeah, so that's a very interesting story, because for the first initial years of my career, I was usually the only woman in the team, and I never thought about doing something around diversity or inclusion, and I kind of accepted that that's how things are. Later in my career, I got an opportunity to work on a women entrepreneurship program with World Bank, and they basically collected a bunch of women coming from different backgrounds to work together and develop entrepreneurship strategies and build their businesses. And that program, sitting in that room with 50 other women, that was like a life-changing experience for me, because I understood that there is strength in numbers and things can change if you start putting your mind to it and strategize and work together. So I started picking up a lot of things from that program in terms of how to build a community, how to engage with people, how to make sure that you keep yourself aligned towards a goal. And from there, I basically started a Facebook group, nothing else, just a Facebook group, and added a few people to it. And I wanted to keep it women only, so that the conversation can flow naturally and we don't have any weird things happening there. And from there, today, it has become part of the national and international discourse around women in technology. It's been only 4 years, and I have no idea how that happened. As Alex said, there are no steps. It just happened. Something came up, and I said yes, and then, things took from there.
I think that's key. A few years ago, I did a keynote called Pivotal Moments. And I kind of explained, and I think you can only do it by going backwards to say, what was that moment that changed my life? Where did I go from here? Yeah. So it sounds like that meeting of those 50 women, but that was 4 years ago. So that might have been a pivotal moment for you, but stepping in and working with them and making it grow, that's something different. What kind of challenges did you have along the way?
I think the first challenge was my own kind of commitment towards that, because it's a lot of emotional labor, as well as a lot of work that you're doing, beside your full-time career and job. And of course, it's not something that it's not something that I have a lot of time on my plate and I can just pick it up. So initially, to be very honest, I also did not take it seriously. I was just trying to build a community where women kind of meet with each other and talk to each other. But later on, when I started listening to stories coming from these women, again, about discrimination, about issues at workplace, and a lot of other things, and that kind of made me realize that if um, that maybe this is something that I really, really need to get into. And then what I did was kind of stopped working full time, went into consulting roles, and then kind of, grew it from there to make sure that I'm able to manage my schedule and do a lot of things together. And then in the middle of that, I got an opportunity to kind of start a free coding bootcamp for girls, and it's an on-site program here in Karachi. I've been running it for almost 3 years now, and we have graduated around 700 girls from that program. So that has also been something that kind of changed a lot of things for me. I'm back to a job, but not a full-time job, rather a part-time job, because again, I have a lot of other things on my plate right now.
Wow, that's truly amazing. Takes a lot of courage to stop one part of your life to give a lot of time to that. Very, very. I'm not sure if I'd have that kind of courage, but I'm amazed. So, but Claudia, I'm going to switch gears a little bit here. Claudia,
Hi.
I was to this amazing conference a few years ago called Testing Uruguay.
Yeah.
And you're one of the co-founders, right? And you've really brought South America and a leader in South America for testing and lots of different things. How did this happen for you?
Well, as Alex and mentioned, it's everything by accident sometimes, but the motivation behind it was like everything in my life is about sharing in my personal life and also in my professional life. I do like sharing ideas, sharing experiences. I think we grow and learn a lot about learning and listening others. So in Uruguay, at some point 8 years ago, it happened that there were 5 companies that were competitors in the market, but the people that was in charge of those companies know each other between us. So we start thinking we need to evangelize and promote testing in the industry. We need good testers in our companies, and we have to grow together and build that awareness in the market and in the industry together, not isolated. So the idea came up with 4 people, and then they invite me for the first meeting, because I used to work with most of them in my former works at the university. I used to be a programming teacher at university in the computer science department. So they invite me to have a role to be like a judge when there were conflicts from the business perspective, because my role there was not from the business perspective. So it was very motivational. And since then, we have been improving and growing as a community. But the motivation behind was sharing knowledge and in somehow with your partners, colleagues, and also in the industry.
Right. And again, I heard the word accidental. It came up in 2 different places, but again, you stepped in. You took that little bit of a risk. You said, count me in and try. And I think that's a really big part. As an aside for people, Claudia is right now in the translating Lisa's and my latest book. So, and the reason behind that, into Spanish, I should say. And the reason behind that is she wants to share it with her community again. So sharing is a really important part. Yeah. Okay, we're going to bounce to Johanna. So leadership in you've shown leadership. I can't even start to count the ways for your very personal life, because you have several blogs, right? But you share, again, it's that sharing some of your own personal challenges, but you've written books from a management perspective, from a product management perspective, from a testing perspective. There's so many different places. So where would you like to start?
So I think that Faiza and I probably have a lot in common. For me, it's always been about how do I learn and have fun. So Faiza, I'm not so sure that fun is a driver for you, but learning and fun is definitely a driver for me. And so I started off my career, a gazillion years ago as a software developer. And I did not become a tester until after I had tried my hand at project management and at program management. And then I bounced back to being a tester and I bounced forward to being a developer. I did a lot of bouncing. And in my experience, people who tend to bounce a lot in their careers end up more well rounded and become leaders in some way, shape, or form. So I'm pretty sure that Alex, you talked about bouncing. Faiza, you did. Claudia, you definitely did. Right. And Janet, I'm not even sure how long we've known each other.
It's been
Many
quite a
years,
while.
many,
Yes.
many years. Yeah. And you have bounced, right? Testing continues to be your domain, but you have bounced between all kinds of areas of that. And I think that if we want to be leaders, we need to figure out how to take our current experiences and our past and figure out how to move them forward in some way and not be afraid to say, oh, fine, this one didn't work out, let's try the next option. Yeah. So I mean, we Janet and I were actually at a conference in Sweden where before I really understood what was going on with my vertigo, and you actually coined the term down a quart in terms of drinking water. So so because I was really having trouble, and she said, "You're down a quart. You need to drink some water." So that you had seen me over the past couple of days. You said, "Oh, let's fix this." So I think it's also partly where we're not afraid to be vulnerable. I think that we cannot be leaders if we are afraid of our own vulnerabilities. And I got to say, I wish I wasn't quite as vulnerable sometimes, but yeah, I mean, we're human. Why not embrace the messiness of being human?
One of the things I've learned from you, Johanna, is how to ask for help. Because on that same trip, I remember you were having difficulty just getting off the train and walking across the cobblestones, and
Oh
you
God.
asked for help. Janet, can you help me? And I went,
Hmm.
you know what? It's okay to ask for help. And I know you've talked a lot about that. And I think sometimes we need help, stepping stones as such. Who do we ask for? Yeah.
Yeah.
So who's helped you besides little people like, me telling you to drink some water? That's
Oh,
small, right?
that was not little at all.
Oh,
So, right, so there were the big people, right? Jerry Weinberg, Esther Derby, all of my colleagues. I see that Rebecca Worf-Sprock is on here. Um, all these colleagues and people I've known forever and ever. And then there's the people that probably are not famous to other people. So I suspect you have had this experience also, Janet. The people in my workshops, oh my goodness, they help me a lot, right?
absolutely.
They tell me all kinds of things that I would not have realized. Blinders. And some of them good and some of them, yeah, not so good. So I find that um certainly the well-known people, right? You say a name, I have probably learned from that person. But it's the people who are not famous who I might have learned even more from.
Totally agree with that. It's and unfortunately, some of those little people, those are the people whose names you forget, except to say, I remember this person in this class or this person in this conference, and they stepped up and helped me in this way, or they said this. And so I think we could all write something about saying, thank you to all the people who have helped me all along the way. I forget who you are, but I remember you. So
Yeah.
at this
Well,
point, yeah, go ahead.
so one more thing. What's really interesting is every so often I get an email from somebody who says, I was in your class 20 years ago. and you said this thing, and I'm thinking, I hope it was good. and, and then they said, and here's how I have taken it with me.
Oh,
And then
nice.
that here's how I have taken it with me. Oh my God. If all of you on this call could say to somebody, anybody, your partner, your kids, a person who was meaningful to you, and say, you said this, and here's how I have taken it with me. That's a huge, huge thing.
That sounds like a blog post every person should write.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Even if they never publish it, but just kind of a something. But send it to
Yeah.
the person if you could. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to change gears a little bit, and Ellen's going to take over the next segment. You're muted, Ellen.
There we go. Okay. And actually, I want to build on that idea of what have you taken with you as you go, though, because I've been furiously scribbling notes as we've been having this wonderful conversation. And I do want to shift into digging a little bit more into talking about culture, but I want to build on this idea that in all of our stories, we have moved from one culture to another. Talking about women in Agile, that's one culture. Who are we as women in the Agile space? But we've also talked about the difference moving from being a developer to being a tester, moving from being a team member or an independent contributor to being a manager or leader in an organization. The different implications of moving between countries and moving from working in a local context to working in a more international context. I think all of us have bounced between cultures like that. And what I'd really like to do is dig into that a little bit and talk about and ask each of our panelists about what have you noticed as you have moved from culture to culture? What have you taken with you on your or what have you carried with you on your travels that has helped you to adapt and to be successful, and that you might pass on as advice to other people who are on that journey? And I'm just going to I'm going to look at Alex first and go, how about I throw you in first? What have you learned on your journey as you've moved from culture to culture?
Yeah, this is a great question. I spent a lot of time when I first moved to a foreign country. I spent some time in France before I spent some time in Germany, before I went back to the UK and then came back to Germany. It was a whole thing. I spent a lot of time wondering, who am I in different languages? Because how much of who I am is based on how this is going to get too philosophical, I'll stop myself, how I'm perceived and how people can interact with me. And being forced to learn to express myself in different languages meant that I could get a reasonably clear idea of what was important to me to be able to express. And I think that, so I've taken that with me, this idea of who am I? And what is, and I work so very hard on being authentic, because there are a few things that all of us do. Nobody is normal, right? But there are things that I do differently, and I sometimes struggle with them, and I constantly work on being authentic and allowing myself to be myself regardless of where I am. But of course, adapting, because not everybody needs the Alex at the bar at 3 o'clock in the morning, right? Some people need the Alex who's having a cup of tea and are more able to listen to them. And those are two aspects of me that are both authentic. Trending is saying that they need me at the bar. I think the other thing that I've taken with me is, and I forget where I heard this, but it's something I've taken with me from a workshop. is this thing actually rude, or is it just not what you're used to? And I never met Jerry Weinberg, but I've read a lot of his stuff, and this idea of looking at things from different perspectives for thinking of at least 2 other reasons why something could be the case. These are things that are, plus all of the experiences you've had where you've totally thought that something was definitely like that, and there's only one way of interpreting it, and then you've sat there red-faced when you found out that it was not actually what you thought it was, and you'd have bet your life on it. So yeah, I think those are the things cross-culture that I've really taken with me, this sense of who I am, and that becomes stronger the more I have to fit in with others. And being a lot more aware of what other people around me, how they act and how they react or respond to things. I think those are the things that these cultural things have had an effect on me.
Wow. Thank you for that. And I want to pick up on something that you said there and then direct this to Faiza, actually, because Faiza had mentioned about creating a space for women to come together to talk and express themselves freely. And Alex, you talked about the importance of learning to express yourself in different languages and different contexts. And I see a connection there that maybe I'm not quite articulating, but it seems to me that that's a natural place to turn to Faiza and to ask you to talk a little bit about what are the things that you've noticed in creating these different kinds of spaces and making the transitions. You know, you talked also about going from being sort of full-time to being an entrepreneur, and that's another one of those cultural jumps. What have you noticed along the way?
I think the biggest kind of takeaway from this journey was understanding that most of the times people are mirroring your own behavior and your own value system when you meet them. So this was something, because I'm an introvert with a lot of social anxiety. I've met a few people at Agile testing days, but they know that I'll just hide in a corner and go somewhere and not just interact, because that's not who I am. But at the same time, I also learned that I'm more open when it comes to virtual spaces than when I am in person. And that kind of initially in my career became a barrier. And later on, I learned how to leverage that. So rather than creating a physical space, I moved towards more of a virtual platform for advocacy and a lot of other activities that we do. And because I also understood that when we are meeting with people, the best thing that we can do is to listen, like actually listen and pay attention to what they're saying. Because again, I think that's my way of understanding people, is to kind of just sit there and listen to them talk about something, and that helps you in identifying a lot of things about the person as well, and as well as what you pick up in that conversation. So while having those like hundreds and thousands of conversations with women and politicians and leaders and this and that, I think I've kind of honed my skill of finding the best possible thread to pick up on and then move from there. So there are a lot of conversations that may in normal circumstances may offend me, but when I'm working for the community work, or when I'm working for Women in Tech Weekend Code Girls, that part of my brain is usually turned off, and I'm just focusing on finding the best possible route out of that conversation, as well as finding the best possible way to work together. And I've worked with a lot of people who may be against those ideas that I put forward, but at the same time, they helped in one way or the other in terms of, you know, putting that message forward, helping us connect with people, helping us connect with resources. And I think that that was something that I never had before I started working for Women in Tech Weekend Code Girls.
Thank you for that. I'm still sitting here processing what you said about how going virtual has really helped you with that, because so many of us are struggling with our usual tool set relies so heavily on being in the same space as people. I know this is something that I've really been challenged with, and I know other people have. And so to sort of think about that, wow, that makes it easier in some ways is a really interesting idea to pick apart. And what you said about listening, I'm thinking back to what Linda said in the last time we met as a panel, and she highlighted that as one of the things she really wished she had paid more attention to earlier in her career, was really the power of listening, to understand context, to understand what people are trying to tell you. And it's interesting how these threads keep coming up and surfacing and coming up. And with that, I'm actually going to head over to Claudia and go and ask, what's been in your toolkit on your journey?
Well, I have, I think, a lot learnings in my role. I completely agree with Alex about being authentic to yourself, because I think that enables you to do other things. Because if you believe in yourself and you trust in yourself, other stuff are very easy to come. So I think regarding communication skills, I think they are really important when we have to work cross culture, cross language. For me, for example, English is a challenge by itself, because sometimes it's very hard to express all your own ideas and express all your knowledge with the same domain that you will have in your mother language. So I think the important lesson learned from my point of view regarding communication is to try to do it. If at the beginning you will be a very messy expressing your ideas, but then you will be able to make your point. So I think the most important thing, or my lesson learned in this road is to trust myself and not be afraid to make mistakes, because there is another person that you are interacting with that also is struggling with other stuff. Maybe for you, the technical stuff are no any risk or any problem for you, but for the other person it is. So the being sympathetic with the others and also trusting yourself is the key. And because communication, from my point of view, enables collaboration, and collaboration is a way of enhancing any strategy or approach that you can have in your team or company. So I think it's the baseline for everything else. So communication and being sympathetic with the others, and then the other skill will appear and be learned, and something like that. Yeah. I think you're muted.
You're
muted,
You're
Ellen.
muted.
It's because I hit it twice when I finally found it. But,
hit it harder.
I know. I'll just break the trackpad, and then you'll be able to hear me. I love the ideas that are coming out of this. And one of the threads that I'm noticing as we're pulling apart what's helped us be successful in these leadership journeys are these ideas about developing authenticity, about listening, about trust, about having confidence in ourselves, and being able to talk about ourselves comfortably as well. That's something that Alex said right at the outset. And I think this is something that a lot of us as women working in the environments that we do are particularly challenged by. And so in giving Johanna the last word on this question, I actually want to ask you, what have you noticed changing in these environments over time that are maybe making it easier for us as women to do these things, to listen intently, to be empathetic? And it's not just us as women, because I think this applies to everybody, right? These are things that I'm going to say stereotypically women have brought to the table, but they're certainly not traits that are unique to women. But I'm curious for your observations, Johanna, about what have you seen changing? Hopefully for the better, maybe for the worse.
So I got to say, I'm not sure I'm the right person to answer this question.
Okay.
I am on the masculine, feminine culture thing from Hofstede. I am more on the masculine side. My obliviousness has helped me tremendously. And I think that one of the great things I have seen is that I don't have to be quite as oblivious to idiocy anymore. I can I can call it out. I'm there were plenty of times early in my career when I was I'm often the only woman in the room because now I work a lot with senior leadership teams, most of whom are still almost all men, right? So that's just the way it is. So from from the time I was a software developer and the only woman in the room, and somebody once turned to me and said, "Please get me a cup of coffee, honey." So I said, "Would you like it in your lap or over your head?" So, yeah, not subtle here at all. Um, and and I did not think anything of that comment. I happened to only be 25 at the time. It never occurred to me to answer any differently. So I think that part of it, oh, that I have a lot of energy around this. Sorry, Ellen. I think a lot of this is um, how do we bring our self confidence? How do we get our self confidence to the point where we are able, because we know we have prepared, we know we are good at what we do, and we know that even if we need to ask for help, notice I still said even because yeah, asking for help, yeah, fine, fine, that we do it from a position of strength. How do we bring our strength with us? And what I see more and more is that people are bringing their strength with them, and um, that really helps. So I I think that it's as long as we come from a position of strength, then we can say, I need help here. I have this to offer you. I can do this thing or that thing. But I think that that is the place I've seen probably the most change over my career. That we did not actually, early in my career, women were still a significant minority of working people. And now we are well, before the pandemic, we were at least half, if not more, and now things are changing again. But I have faith and optimism that we will still continue to be at least half the working force, which changes how everybody thinks of women in the workplace. Do you need me to say what
Yeah.
I said again about the coffee?
I don't. That was a funny story. So
Yeah.
somebody missed
All
that.
right.
Yes.
Yeah. Too bad.
Yeah. They can watch the repeat as well.
Indeed.
But I think that is a great way to go into the last little part of our session before the Q&A. So the last part we wanted to ask, how can we grow more leaders, especially in women? And I think that that was part of a really good segue, come from a position of strength. Do you have anything to add to that before I go to the other panelists? No? Okay. Claudia, what about you?
Okay.
What do you think?
Well, I would say first, having session like this one, of course. I think being active in our communities, I think it's important because I think in some way we can inspire others. Also, helping others to prepare their proposals, to share their knowledge and expertise in conference, webinar, meetups can help because from my point of view, preparing proposals and being a speaker is a way of thinking on how we work, where we would like to be. I think it's a great learning process. And also from maybe thinking about the work environment, from the work environment perspective, I think everyone should be open to promote spaces for others as well as to recognize others. I think we can grow as others gave us a space to grow. And I think from any position that anyone can have, can help others in some degree. So I think spotting that people in our teams helps a lot.
Yeah,
To build
I
that
really like
confidence.
that. Right. I like that idea of promoting others, helping them step up too. Sometimes just giving them the space, right? So I really like
Yes.
that. All right. Faiza, what about you? How do you think we can grow new leaders, especially women?
So I just telling you a little bit about the boot camp that we run. So it's for women who are coming from non-traditional backgrounds, so they do not have any technical education, and we give them an opportunity to spend almost a year with us, learn, and then get them placed into different positions in the local and international tech ecosystem. So again, we have graduated around 700 women, placed around 120 of them so far. So what I've seen is our ability to make a connection with them. So there can be like a million other boot camps around. They'll teach you how to code, but putting them, taking them out from their home environment where they were not doing anything and staying at home, taking care of their families and kids and doing a lot of care work, moving them into, technical, a technical world or a technical job, that requires a lot of mentorship and a lot of one-on-one connection. And that is something that I think really help us in terms of changing things around for women in Pakistan, because me and a lot of women who work with us on these projects basically spend a lot of time mentoring the young ones and spend time with them, answer their questions. I write almost, I don't know, maybe 20-40 intro emails or recommendation emails every week, just connecting women here and there, making sure that they get the right opportunities. So I think that is that personal connection. You, like me, being someone who's senior in a senior person in the tech ecosystem, spending my time to kind of uplifting someone and making sure that they are connected to the right opportunities is extremely important. Um, that one tweet, that one response, that one email can really change trajectories for people, and it has for me. So I think that that can be really helpful.
That's I'm actually I don't even have words for that. I don't. So I'm going to go to Alex now because I don't even know how to respond to that. I find that it's just it makes me want to cry because that's just something truly amazing. Thank you, Alex. You get to follow that.
World
It
changing. Thank you, Faiza. Yeah, I think that one of the biggest things for me is the topic of representation. So I know that one of the reasons that I felt comfortable going and talking at conferences was because I saw people like Janet and like Lisa and like Elizabeth Hendrickson keynoting at the first conferences that I went to. And the sweetest, I tweeted about this the other week, the sweetest thing happened to me. I have a goddaughter who's 4, and she said that she wants to be a boss with pink hair when she grows up. Okay, now I have red hair. but just that makes me go fuzzy inside, because that means that I am for hair, that's normal, that's cool, and I want that. I think as well the idea of sponsoring people, making sure that you speak up for them when they're not there, and also, and this is something I'm careful to work on as well, catching your own bias, because as much as I'm as much of a product as the system as everyone else, which means that I am potentially just as likely to not promote women, or to only promote women out of development jobs instead of letting, like, I need to catch myself doing those things as much as I tell other people to catch themselves. And I'd say, I think the other thing is, it costs energy, and I definitely don't have to expend as much energy on this as some other people, but it still does cost energy. But if you have the energy, fight the fight, because you're the trailblazer that makes it easier for someone else. And if you don't, that's okay too, because this is I think the other thing for me as well, have a network. I having that network means that sometimes you don't always have to fight that fight on your own, or you can go and have a wine or a rant, or am I seeing this the wrong way, or what would you all tell me? And within that network, I try and find the time that if somebody needs help, if I meet someone at a conference, not just women, but especially women, and if they need help and they need support with something, that I try and find an hour to say, okay, we're gonna get on a call, we're gonna do this. I think those are the things that I think can help, and those are the things that I try to do.
Excellent. What a great wrap up. So we've finished the, I guess, formal part of this. Oh,
Can I
certainly
add
you
one
may.
thing?
Certainly, yes.
Thank you. Thank you. So all of you said really lovely things about supporting and helping to lift other people up. I would like to add one more thing, that people, if they find their own writing voice, might not need quite as much help as support from other people. Rebecca actually said, Faiza, that you should write an experience report about this. And she's right. You should write an experience report. And Alex the same, and Claudia the same. The more we express ourselves in writing, the more other people hear our voices. And that's one way we can help ourselves. Okay, I'll hush now. Thank you.
No, that's a great point.
Did you just give me homework?
Yes.
I did.
I think
I
think
did.
she gave everybody homework.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So that wraps up the formal part of it, and we're going to go into some Q&A and see what kinds of questions. Do you want to take that, Ellen?
I will, and I'm just looking at the questions and answers, and they're being upvoted as we talk. But I'm going to pick up on that homework theme, because the question at the top of the list is, what would you tell your 20 to 30 year younger me? I'm going to reframe that a little bit as, what homework would you give that younger person who's just starting out in order to help them find their path and find their voice? Open the floor to whoever wants to jump in.
I would say doubt yourself less.
What kind of homework does that mean, though?
Yeah.
How would you do that?
I'm going to need another 5 years to figure that one out.
If I can jump in on that, I would say experiment more. Because I find that that's, for me, that's the way to doubt myself less. To experiment in everything. You don't have to jump jobs, but how can you experiment more with the job you have, and with your relationships, with how you use an agile approach, anything. The more I experiment, the more I learn faster, and that does it for me.
I'll copy the answer that the clever lady said.
I actually just want to add a little bit that I think it's really important to reframe it for yourself as experiments when you're trying new things. Because I know especially that, when you're really feeling that you're in the spotlight or that you're under stress, everything becomes super serious, life or death. If this doesn't go right, we're all doomed. And casting it as that, I'm just going to try this out and see what happens. And I give myself permission to do that, and everybody else, this is the way we're all thinking about it, is really critical. That trying a series of experiments, we're going to try this out and see what happens. I think it's difficult. I think it's easy to forget that sometime. And any other homework we'd like to set for our younger selves and the colleagues who are just coming in?
I think I will tell my younger self to read more, and read more fiction, because that became my kind of way to understand people. I always thought that I had a different script of life from other people, and fiction kind of helped me navigate that whole space. My focus stayed on a lot of academic reading and stuff like that, and I missed a lot on fiction, and now I'm just reading a lot of fantasy these days, just trying to entertain myself. But I would definitely tell my younger self to read more, and read more fiction, and read more things to to skill up myself. Yeah.
I'd say that's fabulous advice. I think that's really, really critical that, that you expose yourself to, because often through fiction, we encounter other ideas and other worlds that are different than the one that we're operating in. And it really helps us question our own thinking in a different way, coming at it from a different way. Do we have time for one more question, do you think, Janet?
I think we have time for one more question.
One more question. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask the one that's, was there a point of inflection in your career when you noticed that people were finally listening to you the way they ought to? Back to that idea that we talked about at the outset of noticing those pivotal moments. Let's close with, have you noticed a pivotal moment in your career where people started to listen? Johanna, jump in.
Okay, so the very first time I became a project manager with a 3-person project, a mechanical engineer, hardware engineer, and I was a software engineer. And I said, let's do this. And they did. And I said, let's do that. And they did. And that's when I realized both the power and the responsibility that came with leadership. So I had a responsibility to my team to be as transparent as possible. And they also had the responsibility to me. And that was the first time I realized it. And it was both a heady and sobering realization.
Yes.
Yeah, for me, I would say I was very young. I was 5 years old. And yeah, but it was a situation, nothing to do with technology, of course. It was at primary school. There was a situation with a mate and the teacher, and I was really disagree with how the situation was handled. So when I came back from school, I told my mother what had happened and how the situation was, and I think something should be done. And my mother said, okay, tell me what happened, and we will do what to do. So the next day, we went to the school and to talk with the director, and the director asked me to tell the story again. And I feel so confident that my mother was close to me. And I was really happy what happened later after that. So I would say that trusting in yourself and trusting in your mate, in your family, in the person that you have next to you, enables you to do whatever you want to reach. So if I have to give a piece of advice to someone who is starting anything from the professional life or is struggling with something, is trust yourself and get support from the people who you love. Yeah. So I remember that moment specifically because I felt really happy about the how the situation was handled later. Yeah.
That's fabulous. That feeling of how it all works when you find sort of team you and can act in a difficult situation. That's wonderful. Faiza or Alex, do you have a moment that you can share?
I don't have one moment. I'm trying to, there's a part of me that wants to answer, wait, you all get people to listen to you? Like, no, because, and I think it's because I enjoy storytelling, not in the sense of telling lies. I enjoy storytelling and I enjoy coaching and understanding. So I think I made a comment at one of our strategy days just after I came into the leadership team, and I was like, well, if it was up to me, then this and this would be the case. And someone said, yeah, but it is up to you. And I said, yeah, but I don't. So sure, I could command it, but that's not going to help. Funnily enough, I saw that the question was asked by Amitai, and actually, he came and visited us, and suddenly after he visited us, people started agreeing with the things that I'd been telling them for a long time before. And I think that's because Amitai is fantastic. And I don't think it has anything to do with the fact that I'm a woman and he's a man in this case. I think that was because we brought in somebody external to tell people the things. So that's been a definite thing for me, that if my message isn't getting through, that's not always to do with who I am or where I am or whatever, but that sometimes you need somebody else to convince you as well. So yeah, and otherwise I'm just always living in hope that people will listen to my fantastic advice.
As we all are, as we all are. I love that story about bringing in other people to be part of Team You, if you will. And I'm gonna open the floor to Faiza if you have anything to add.
I think I started realizing that the things that I'm saying matter when people started coming back to me with um, questions and with asking me to work on something or explore some ideas. So, for example, I started talking about not being able to find proper digital footprint for Pakistani women in tech. So that was something that I said just randomly in a panel, and someone picked up on that and came back to me and said that that's an excellent idea, because when we Google someone from Pakistan, we are unable to find any senior women in tech. And you are telling us that there are a lot of women in tech. So why don't you pick up that? At that moment, I was like, this guy is giving me more work. But then I realized that no, because this is something that he heard and he thought that that's a good idea. And later on, he gave us excellent advice in terms of how to do that. And we have been doing it for quite a while now, publishing at least 2 interviews every month, making sure that these women are somewhere online where people can find them. And we've also built like a very huge directory for local women in tech. So again, these are the things that I said, just throwing it out in the universe, and they came back to me, and then I realized that no, I think people are listening. No matter they're coming back to me with more work for me, but still they're listening.
They're listening. Yeah. I have one story to add to this one before we'll sign off. Is I think the first time I realized that people listened to me was the first time somebody quoted me in a tweet. And I went, oh, it's out there in the world, so it's a scary thing. It's that responsibility with it too. Yeah.
It is absolutely terrifying. I can remember, for me, it was the first time somebody came to me at a conference who I didn't know and said, I saw a video you did on YouTube. I have questions. Can I ask them?
Yes.
Blew my mind. Absolutely blew my mind. Okay. But speaking of mind-blowing, this has been another mind-blowing conversation. It has been, I just want to say thank you, because I'm looking at the clock and we're at the top of that hour. But I want to say thank you to all of our participants for what you have shared with us and with the larger us, all of the people out there and all of the people who watch this video afterwards today. This has been a really powerful conversation about the experiences we've had as women leaders in Agile, and how we can help each other and grow more space for more women to step into leadership roles. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks you for the invitation.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So,
thank you all.
Thank you.
We say goodbye.
Good night, everyone.